Alrighty, so just like what I said earlier, I was gonna wait an hour after the expansion draft is over, thinking that we might see some trade that is gonna be happening. We might see some draft picks from the expansion draft is going to be flipped for a trade and for some general allocation of money for San Diego FC. What I did not expect is that during the draft itself, when they were announcing the draft pick for this expansion draft, that they literally announced not only who they will pick, but some of the players that they picked, they even announced who they're going to trade to and basically flip that with some general allocation money. I don't know if that's allowed to do, but apparently, I guess the league is okay with that. So in some way, I actually didn't have to wait an hour after this expansion draft has taken place. And also, I would say that as it is the case whenever there's a big announcement, I just hated the fact that it feels like a drag in the beginning where they do all the introduction and so forth. I mean, I get it. Yes, they want to make it very ceremonial, but at the same time, I just kind of had a feeling like let's just get to the draft. Let's put all those ceremonial stuff out of the way, and not to mention the stream itself, which thank God there was the Reddit page of MLS to rescue me because when I tried to watch this on San Diego FC, they were asking me to register to watch the stream, which that is absolutely criminal. The fact that it is the case. Thankfully, you can actually watch it on the league website because there is no way in the world I was going to have to bend over backwards in terms of signing thing up. Imagine you're about to tune in to watch the stream only to find out that you have to take the painful process of signing up and so forth before you get to the stream. Yeah, it's getting kind of out of hand if that is the case. But like I said, thankfully I was able to watch it on the league YouTube website. Though the stream itself, yeah, it was very poor quality. I mean, there were times where it was kind of buffering, and there was time where I'm just simply, you know what, I might not even just watch it. I'll just wait until the resort is over. But let us actually begin by talk about the five picks, and also we'll talk about some of the other notable move that San Diego FC have made today because they definitely made some big move as well. And this is even after when I do the news of the week episode. So for the first pick that they chose, they decided to go with Colorado Rapids fullback Jasper Lawfulson, and for the second pick, they decided to go with Hanen Bruksov, one of the midfielder for Orlando City. For the third pick, they decided to go with Hamad Diab for Charlotte FC, of course, a center back that is, and not just any center back, but a center back that actually got picked in the number one draft pick in the Super Draft last year, which yeah, or not last year, I'm sorry, but just 2 years ago when Charlotte basically came into the league, and I think this is the first time we actually see a number one pick that was just made a couple of years ago ends up picked in the expansion draft. Now number four, this is where we started to see some trade going on. We got Thiago Andrade, who, yeah, he's still with NYCFC. Even though he was actually on loan in China, he still actually has a contract with NYCFC. So San Diego decided to pick him up and immediately flipped him to Toronto FC for a number nine overall pick for the Super Draft this year and 250 uh, K of GAM and some sell on fee. And then for the number fifth pick, they chose Jose Kojima from St. Louis City, and they immediately flipped him to DC United for 400,000 general allocation money. Now, looking at these picks, starting with the number one pick with Jasper Lawfulson, I was kind of surprised that he didn't really get as much minutes doing his time with the Rapids. I remember when last year when I talked about how he was going to the Rapids, I thought he was going to get potentially more minutes with RSL, consider he was kind of a fringe starter doing his time with Real Salt Lake. But what I did not expect was that during his time with the Rapids, he barely got into the starting 11. Now, partially it's because the Rapids they had a pretty good backline, at least in the beginning. That is, and not to mention, I think he also plays in the same spot that Sam Vines play in. So yeah, obviously he was kind of more notable as a backup, and we'll see whether or not if he does get minutes here. I mean, anytime when you see a guy that is kind of being a backup for a good team or just being backup for an MLS team, they want to have a change of scenery, especially an expansion team, and hope that they, of course, will get themselves the starting role. And it's one thing to note. And I'll probably maybe do videos of looking back at some of the expansion draft in the past and look at where they are are right now, that most of the picks in the expansion draft, mostly these guys either doesn't stay with the expansion team for so long, or the fact that they're pretty much irrelevant after all. But yeah, there's no doubt that if you guys are interested of me making a video of looking at back at some of the old expansion drafts, especially if I maybe look back 5 years ago in the expansion draft, looking at where they are right now, let me know in the comments below if you want to make that want me to make that video. But yeah, this it'll be interesting to see whether or not if Lawson will get into the starting role here. Then in the number two draft pick, we got Henny Brosev from Orlando City. Now this is a guy that I actually have never heard of him. I had to do a little research because I never heard of this guy. I didn't even know he was with Orlando City. I actually found out that he actually was picked up in the summer transfer window, and then he didn't really play a single minute for Orlando City. So yeah, that's kind of a weird situation that they decided get a guy, and they actually pay some good amount to get this guy. I believe from the Norwegian league, and they didn't really play him at all. So yeah, I guess this is definitely a definition of change of scenery. Maybe now he gets a chance to join a new team and maybe finally made his MLS debut like that. I think this might be the first time we might see a player that is making an MLS debut, but not for the team that they originally bought from, and that yeah, we'll see whether if he can do so. I mean, I don't know too much about him. I know Orlando City was pretty stacked in the defensive end, but for him to not even make a single minutes with the club, it was a very strange move. And I even checked to see was he maybe even part of the B team and even part of the second team that play in MLS Next Pro, and I couldn't find anything out of that too. So he virtually didn't play any single minutes at all during his time with Orlando City. And then of course the third pick is Hamada Diab. As I mentioned, this is the pick that came a couple years ago, where he was actually the number one pick in the Super Draft. Now, obviously, things haven't really quite worked uh, out for Hamada Diab. He's been kind of spending more time on loan, especially in the second half of the season. I think he spent time on loan in the Serbian league, and it's going to be interesting to see whether if he's going to get minutes with the San Diego team. I mean, there are definitely upside that he could be a good defender, and especially I think the reason one of the bigger reason why he didn't really get a lot of chance with Charlotte is that he didn't really play that well in the beginning, and then the team kind of gave up on him after that. But then, by the time he had a chance to get back in the starting 11, they already have a very good defense to speak of. So we'll see whether this change of scenery will work. And as I said, this is quite strange to see a guy that's being picked up in the expansion draft, even though just a couple of years ago he was the number one overall pick in the 2020 free MLS Super Draft. And then you got Thiago Andrade, a name that again, this is a name that I'm pretty sure if you watch MLS, especially if you're an NYCFC fan, you probably know this name well. But at the same time, this is a guy that he had a great start to his career in NYCFC, but then it kind of just completely fall apart. And then he kind of had a bit of a surprising return. I think he even scored a goal after that, and I even mentioned how remember him. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's been kind of a forgotten man for NYCFC, but then eventually he went on loan to China, and you were thinking that anytime when a player go on loan in China, it doesn't really quite go well, and maybe they're just thinking about the money, but yeah, he's now back in MLS, and again, he's going to be traded to Toronto FC. I think this is a move that for TFC, that this could be a building block, especially if Thiago Andrade they can get back to the form that he was with NYCFC. I mean, if he can get back to the form that he was with NYCFC a couple of years ago, this could be a good move for TFC. But they pay about 250,000 GAM. I mean, I think that's a reasonable no price for a guy that could be have a high reward if things could go well, like we saw a couple of years ago. The sell on fees is also interesting because he's still a very young player. Again, this is a guy that when he was brought into the NYCFC system, he had show a lot of promise. Was going to probably sell off to Europe for a big amount of money. Didn't happen, and now we'll see whether if he can revitalize his career. Not with San Diego FC, but instead with Toronto FC. That is a tough team to try to your career, especially with that team being in a deep rebuild as they are. And then in the number five pick, we see Jose Kojima being picked up from St. Louis City. So Jose Kojima was actually signed last year. I think he came out of the super draft, if I'm not mistaken, or in the homegrown deal. Either way, he's a guy that I always remember him scoring his first goal on his debut against the Dynamo in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. After that, he didn't really do much. He's kind of more of a fringe player for the St. Louis City side. But yeah, he of course is going to be traded to DC United. Though the amount that DC pay, it's a bit of a steep price. I mean, 400,000 general allocation money. I mean, that's a little bit of an overpay, especially for a guy that I know he has some potential, but that seems like a little bit of an overpay for a guy that could have some raw ability to and can do well for this DC team. But nevertheless, more allocation money added into San Diego um pocket. And again, I know there are going to be some people and some fans are not happy about how San Diego is doing this. Again, this is something that we've seen with previous expansion team too. We've seen previous expansion team had decided to pick up a player in the expansion draft and immediately flip them for amount of money. Until the league decided to have a rule that implement that, you're gonna see future expansion team that is going to do exactly the same thing. They want to get that general allocation money that they can use, so that they can, of course, use that to sign a couple of players around the league, or definitely even looking into free agency as well. Even though, to be fair, you don't really need general allocation money to get those free agents, especially those top free agent out there, and also when it comes to the reentry draft, itself, you also don't need that amount to do. You just need that amount to basically get some players from other team and maybe make a big trade from the other team to acquire them, and could be one of the key showpiece for the San Diego team. Now, other notable move that San Diego made today. So as I mentioned in the News of the Week episode, they are very close in terms of signing Andres Reyes, even though it's not official. It's pretty much close to being official, and that's definitely a big move. Consider how big of an impact he had with the Red Bulls, especially in the playoffs, and how much especially in the first 20 minutes of the game, they absolutely miss Andres Reyes in that MLS Cup. But besides that, they also acquired CJ Dos Santos from Miami for 100,000 general allocation money. Now, again, I don't know if he's gonna be the starter for this team in terms of the goalkeeping role. I'm assuming they probably might get another goalkeeper because so far, when you look at the two goalkeeper that they got, all of them seems like they're kind of just backup quality, not really kind of starting caliber kind of player. But he's a good backup quality with Miami. He did play a couple of games and he did look solid in the games that he played. And then they also acquired Chris McVey from DC United for 100,000 general allocation money. And I also heard on the MLS Reddit page and how some fans mentioned how it seems like San Diego is trying to rebuild the Inter Miami back line, because remember, if they get McVay and Andres Reyes, they pretty much just created the back line a couple of years ago for Miami. Though unfortunately, the bad news for San Diego is that back line was not good. Whatsoever. Though that being said, from McVay, he's been kind of been okay at best in terms of playing games. I mean, I think he was starting games for DC, which again, he wasn't really a starting caliber kind of center back. He feels it feels like this is kind of another depth piece that San Diego decided to pick, because again, with the way that they didn't really pay a lot of money for these two move, it seems like these are just kind of depth piece, and this team continued to build the roster. And again, as we continue into the offseason, we know San Diego is going to be very active in the transfer window. We know that they're going to continue to build the roster. Obviously, we already know that they have a keystone piece in Chucky Lozano, and I feel like throughout this inaugural season, a lot of the attack is going to run from Chucky Lozano. It's going to be very similar to what we saw with LAFC. Remember how LAFC got Carlos Vela, and that was a showcase piece, and a lot of things ran for Carlos Vela in the first season. And it also helps the fact that they had a guy called Diego Rossi that they acquire, and he turns out to be a very good player. I think that's what San Diego is banking on, the fact that they might not only will have Chucky Lozano doing his best. I think he could be one of the top creator in this league. I mean, he has already shown overseeing, especially with L3 as well. It just kind of reminds me of what LAFC did when they brought in Carlos Vela. But it just also feel like San Diego need another piece on the attacking end to not just have to make sure everything go through Chucky Lozano on the attack. Now on the defensive end in the midfield, there's still a big question mark on that. There's a lot of question mark of whether, of course, is it gonna go so well. And I even mentioned when it comes to expansion team, and one of the good success of an expansion team is that you want to be an expansion team that has a good defense, because at times we know expansion team does have problem at times with the question mark of who's going to be the one that scores the goal. I mean, obviously with this team it could be Chucky Lozano, even though he's more of a creative player. But there's no doubt that I think that could be one department that they're going to be look at. Again, it is still early days. The San Diego still have a whole off season to work with, but we will get a better idea how this team is going to look as the off season goes along. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they even have a head coach right now. Let me just make sure. If I might be completely wrong by this. But yeah, I don't think they hire a head. No, they did. They got Mikey Veras, who of course come from the Greg Berhalter system, or at least I think it is. Let's see. Yeah, I probably should have done some research in this. Yeah, he came from the Greg Berhalter system, which again that's kind of questionable at times. But overall, we'll see what San Diego FC does for the rest of the offseason. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.